Verbal Pick Radio, where we give you a verbal image of life, and we are everyday people. I'd like to welcome you all to the show. During the recent event, specifically the Kobe-Bryant tragedy that took place, we want to help those understand that the things that surround that, the feelings that you might have if a loved one passed. I'm pretty sure majority of the listeners has lost someone that was dear and close to them. So we want to get into a metaphysical, deeper understanding of death, which is nothing new. You all heard the cliche, we're born dying. And also, I'd like to thank Loki for coming back on the show to discuss this topic. Loki, what's going on, brother?
What's going on, Brother Black?
You got it. Now, look, we want to, first, before we get started, because the title, we discussed it before on the show, but that title, Soul of a God, powerful title. I just want the people to know who you are as far as the music, real quick, because music is an art form and it's a science. So can you tell us what's going on with the music right now? And I know you're, or where they can get your material.
You said what about the material?
Where they can find it, where they can locate it, download it, purchase it.
Yeah, for sure. You can go on SoundCloud.com/4 LO-KI. You can go on YouTube, the number 4 LO-KI. You can look for the song by Big Brother L, Soul of a God, featuring Loki. Just uploaded that. Be uploading the actual official music video for it February 8th, my born day. So tap in.
Yeah, definitely. Because as well as you get the insight on different topics and subjects that we discuss, that wisdom is also intertwined within the music. So you can take that along with you in your journey through life. So we want everybody to get out and support. Today's topic, yes, sir, brother. Today's topic, we're discussing the universe and death. Because death is not only a physical death. You can be spiritually dead. You can be financially dead. You can be socially dead. We just want to get into that energy, I should say, or things that surround that term of death. And as I stated, all of us, majority of us has lost someone that was close to us. And, it's great to have Brother Loki on the show, because sometimes people get depressed behind a loved one leaving. Sometimes they can't go on and they're trying to explain why. And some even say, why'd you take that person, God, and spared me? Then we get into some of the Bible phrases where it says they talk. Now they call this the rapture, but it never. There's no word in the Bible that says rapture, but they include. One would be grinding at the millstone and he'd take one. Two would be laying in the bed and he'll take one, and whatnot. And they're saying, well, woe to those who are left after God takes those who he deemed as his servants. What is your take on that, Brother Loki? And I don't know if you're familiar with that scripture, and I can't get the verse right off the top of my head, but it was dealing with the rapture and death and taking those who God deemed as his servants, or his good ones, quote unquote, that he'd take those up in the rapture, and those who that he didn't choose would be left behind on the earth. How would you interpret that meaning?
Okay, that sounds like the 144,000.
Okay.
So the 144,000 is the 72, whether you want to talk about the Goetia or the 72 Jinn. You see the 72 conspirators of Set and Kemet mythology. And, so you have, let's say you also have your 72 angelic spirits. So your 72 angelic spirits and your 72, let's just use the Goetia as an example. You could say that would be the equivalent of demonic spirits, which demonic is just talking about melanin. The word demon comes from the word daemon, which comes from Amen, which Amen is also means Amen, which is hidden, which means hidden. It's talking about subconscious aspects, which is the subconscious is the thinking apparatus of the soul. So, these, when they talk about these demons and the Necronomicon, and so they're talking about deep aspects of the subconscious. Me and Slip Dub was just pulling up a picture when I was out there in Atlanta of the fish that's deep in the ocean, and we may have touched on it in the podcast. And when you go deep into the ocean, which the ocean corresponds with the subconscious mind, the fish start looking like creatures out of a horror movie. And reason being is because what it's showing symbolically to the conscious mind in our waking consciousness is a subconscious concept of the further that you get away from the sun and what's apparent, then it gets further away from what we consider to be the standard.
Right.
Just like you have standard beauty. So those fish deep in the deep aspects of the ocean will be considered ugly, the opposite of beauty, which, even when you go into the Hindu mythology, you see how they look now in general. A lot of them, they're blue now. And, you go into some of the more ancient pictures of the Hindu deities, they're pitch black, and they're a little bit, they look different in their presentation and their symbology. It's not so, sitting in the forest somewhere, where you have this blue deity that's in what we would consider more of a beautiful landscape. All of the more ancient pictures in Hinduism is darker and, which you still see that in Durga and Kali and so on, but I'm talking about as a whole, Krishna. I got pitch black pictures of Krishna that are more ancient than the Krishnas that you see now, in Hinduism. So all this corresponds, because we're further removed from how the ancients were presenting, things are more based around life, based studies and not, there's not the same focus that our ancestors had on death study, which is just as important.
Okay, excellent.
So that rapture, just not to cut you in, but the rapture, and to complete the question, the answer to the question is that the 144,000 is the 72 angelic spirits, or the minor chakras on the pineal gland, and the 72 demonic spirits, or let's say the 72 Goetia, the 72 conspirators of Set, same thing, also on the pineal gland, which makes the 144, because the Bible is a metaphysical book. Yes, it does have some, you can pull some moralism from it, but you can pull moralism from anything. It is a science book, it's an astrology book, it's a metaphysical book full of symbology, and that's the core of what it should actually be used for by and large.
Okay, great. Now another question that I constantly get asked in dealing with death is when that flesh goes, and we know that the flesh just houses the spirit, but when that final hour, when the clock stops ticking, where does the spirit goes? That energy, that energy that's within.
Right. So it gets concentrated into the subconscious realm. Whenever we go to sleep, and instead of us concentrating that energy into our waking consciousness, when we go to sleep, we're concentrating that that ki, or that spirit, or the spirit energy, that vibrational energy, into the subconscious. And so when we get there, when we get to the dream, everything that shows up is in a symbolic form. It's in a form where you can decode it and decipher it for your waking consciousness. So they work hand in hand. They're a tag team. So, once the flesh is done, and that, that particular part of the work is done, then that spirit gets concentrated there. And then it has to work from there to even go beyond that. The next step. Yeah.
Right, to get to that. Now, let me ask you this. Now, say those loved ones that pass, and that energy is still in the atmosphere. It was compared to, that energy was compared to electricity. You see the effects of the electricity, but you don't actually see the electricity working. But I'm asking that just to set up I'm asking that to set the base up for the fact that the energy exists. Now, also, our energy exists, but we can say as above, so below. The person dies, so his energy is above. We're still on the earth, but that energy is housed on the earth, or within the body of a being. So we say that's below, right? Is there any way to where that energy that's below, that's in man, that's in living man, can communicate with the energy that lost its host or its body?
At all times. When they talk about our genes, whenever, let's say, family members, when they transition, they go back into the subconscious. They go into the underworld. It's funny because we're looking at that movie right now in the house. But that's why whenever people transition, everybody can tap directly in from there. They can start, even if you were to have a conversation out loud, society now in the present, they would deem that as being, thrown off. But based on the principle of cause and effect, is that everything that you do, there's an effect, and vice versa. There's nothing that we actually do, whether it's voluntary or involuntary, that doesn't fall under cause and effect. So if you speak out into the atmosphere, there is going to be an effect. If you do create an altar, or if you don't, there will be a cause and effect. Everything that you do, that principle applies. So one way that and I think we touched on this before on the podcast, is that the way that spirit or vibrations communicate is oftentimes subtle. It can come in the form of an aha moment. Whenever you even get the notion to even start talking to a family member, if you're a Christian and you out there and you wake up and you start talking to maybe a parent that transition, or that's that spirit coming through. It's in your subconscious. If you think about it, if you're thinking about it in your mind, that's how spirit communicates. That is, if the name comes up or if you get a phone call, that's how energy communicates. If it was dead energy, and if it was non-existent, then it wouldn't even come to your mind. It wouldn't come to your consciousness. There's no way for you to pull on the energy if it has to be present in order to be able to pull from it. So let's say if there was an ancestor that existed 10,000 years ago and we have no record of it, and then it's probably not going to come to your consciousness unless maybe you know some techniques to be able to tap into some of those, more lost because these vibrations, they're inside of these dimensions, which is just all part of the subconscious mind, and they break down over time because nothing lasts forever. So it goes into a cycle, but that energy can show up under another name, and so the prior one that existed is no longer accessed because it may have turned into a whole nother form of energy by another name, so.
Wow, that's like when you hear people say, man, you're going to live a long time. I was just thinking about you or whatever, and you pop up or you call or whatever, but the person that thought went out into the universe and connected with that energy or that person that they're thinking about, and they had an encounter. Or, you know what I mean? Or really, you can be thinking about something or a song or something, all of a sudden it's played on the radio, or you have a thought that you want to get into a new business, whatever, and all of a sudden the phone rings and they talking about that business. I'm just saying it to show the power. Now, is that the power of the mind or the power of that energy, that spirit that the body encompasses?
So that energy is inside of the mind.
Okay.
So and our reality is produced by our subconscious.
Right.
So which shows up as the color frequency black. So let's say one way to look at it, one angle is that when people show up, they just pop up and you say, "Speak of the devil, and he or she shall appear." Well, it's just like what you were saying. You speak on somebody, and you actually invoke their mantra, and then they appear because that's a product of your subconscious. You invoke their mantra, and because your subconscious produces your reality, it may manifest the actual embodiment of the mantra that you just spoke out of your mouth because you're God.
So that's how we used to communicate before we had the actual physical phones or phone lines. At one point, now let me ask you this. So say now that you had two family members, right? Right. One is in say Mexico, and the other one is in Egypt, right? If they share that same bloodline, can they know that each other existed? Let me rephrase that. Apocalypse, something cataclysmic took place, right? Two separated. They don't know where the other one is, but do you think that there'll be an inclination or a feeling that somebody else exists on this planet other than the one that's aware, or the one that that knows, that's saying it, that the one that's feeling that there's more, that there's someone else in existence other than themselves? You get what I'm asking?
You're saying, would they know if someone else that's in existence that carries that same bloodline?
Right, that carries that same bloodline. Like even if they on opposite ends of the planet, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they might think that, let's say just for conversation's sake, let's say Noah's flood, right? Let's say something cataclysmic like the flood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one woke up and looked around and found out that he didn't see any other living souls around him, right?
Mm-hmm.
But on the opposite end of the planet, the flood swept that one, but it survived.
Mm-hmm.
Would they know that there's someone else out there besides themselves?
Okay, so I'll say this is that this actually makes me think about what I'm studying now, astral travel, and I'm still at the, might as well say the beginning, even though it's been a long study so far, but I would say I'm still just, tapping the surface on it. I think this is something that one can appeal to in your astral travel. Because when you start getting into astral travel, then you're looking for answers to questions, and those answers are in your subconscious. So if you want to, answer that question, if you have that question, you want to see if something is out there that you want to connect with, then you can go into your dream before you even go into your dream and ask that question. Okay. And once you become competent in your dreams and you can be aware, then you can, just the same as you're in the physical, you can start working on being able to locate whatever you're looking for. Okay. Whether it be someone of the bloodline or otherwise.
Yeah, because it was. The only reason why I asked that question is because they were saying how a drop of water would find other water, other waters. Water finds water. And I'm like, wow, do human beings find beings or know beings? And that's why we build boats to travel and discover and find people in different locations and, to have a sense that, even with, are they saying space travel today? Are we alone in the universe or whatnot? And majority of the population, human beings, would say that they believe that there's other entities out there other than life is. There's other life on other planets other than just this planet, but that instinctively, you feel something.
Yeah, for sure, and also it could be out of a need to want to connect with somebody, and out of that need, as God, you can actually produce that other person. So just like, let's say in the movie I Am Legend with Will Smith. Mm-hmm. So he got on his radio broadcast, and which you're tapping into vibrations and frequencies, and which vibration and frequencies of spirit, and he was calling out for somebody to connect with him. He was like, anybody. And then, when times got darkest for him, when he was actually about to get killed, a woman appeared with a child. And in the movie, his wife and his child, spoiler alert, they got killed in the movie. So this other woman and child shows up in this apocalyptic reality in this movie. And, basically what he desired was produced by him putting out that message. He actually made manifest what he actually was seeking, what he was, wanting to actually appear. So his subconscious actually produced that for him. And this is from a subconscious perspective. From a conscious perspective, it's just coincidence, but there ain't no such thing as coincidence. Right. This entire reality is a product of the subconscious, which is, like I said, is a thinking apparatus for the soul.
Right. Well said. One more. In the death of Los Angeles Lakers great Kobe-Bryant, it's been all over the news and whatnot. I just want to take the time to not utilize his death, but intertwine that tragic event with less popular people who also lost loved ones, right? To deal and understand that it's a part of life. There's a saying that says, let the dead bury the dead. There's work to do for the living. I just really want the listening audience who may have lost someone dear to them, and they're as I stated, could be depressed or having a hard time coping and dealing with debt, how would you put it to where it can ease them, knowing that it's a natural occurrence, but it also serves its purpose? And could you elaborate on the purpose of that, other than, as time moves forward, the flesh gets weak, and you taking out here anyway. But does death serves a higher purpose? And I believe it does, simply because when someone dies, you hear people say, well, they're going on to a higher place, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I also heard that, well, yeah, that spirit is going on to be with the Lord. But also when John, and this was in the Circle 7, the Quran of the Moors, when John's mother passed, Elizabeth, John was crying. So one of the wise men came and asked him why was he crying, and he told him, he said, no need to cry, because death comes to cut the tie that binds, so that person can go on and do works in another plane. But the essence of that person is still in existence. And so, do you believe that the that serves a purpose other than that the family member don't see that individual anymore?
For sure, serves many purposes. So my nephew transitioned in November, my father transitioned in December, and my cousin Ava just transitioned in January. So, we're having these discussions now amongst family, amongst loved ones, me and Black. And, the purpose is we're at, and this is really a celebration, we're in the last stages before we transition beyond perfection. So we're going through this crystallization process, and, when family members transition, kobe-bryant, peace be upon, all of our family and loved ones that transition, Black's father, peace be upon him. We're evolving from, these moments that's happening. And when these spirits, when these souls, whenever they transition, they, unless they're going beyond, the spirit realm, which is the subconscious realm, which is where a family goes when they transition out of a body, then they're still working tag teaming with us here as we go in and out of consciousness. We're awake right now, we go to sleep, we're where they're at. We're, in what people call heaven. Asar is Lord of the Perfect Black. The Perfect Black is the subconscious mind. He was in the underworld, all talking about the same thing. It's a feminine principle. It's the triple stage darkness that they refer to when you start learning about the Nation of Islam. When the child is going through the 3 trimesters of birth, and it's within the perfect black. The perfect black is also the womb. The womb corresponds to the subconscious. So we're learning together, those of our family, and all for the purpose of transitioning beyond perfection, going beyond that concept. So we're in the last stages, the petering out stages of our work in imperfection, duality and all that bullshit that we're experiencing, waking up, eating and shitting and repeating the cycle, all the work within imperfection, within a flaw, just to go beyond both concepts. because we experience, little moments of heaven down here, and when we're in our sleep, you have even more of that feeling, that euphoria, because you're just in a space that's of a higher frequency and of a higher vibration.
Right. Now, do you believe that the ancestors can serve as a guide? You know how you might be traveling or you're doing something and you get a feeling, you kind of want to go right, but some told you to go left to avoid something. Do you feel like the ancestors serves as a guide to protect you?
They definitely do, definitely. And the best way to increase on that connection is to deal with them in quid pro quo. So, whenever you speak upon them, if you're dealing with any type of altars, any energy that you put into these concepts, is you're going to get more of an abundance of return. You're going to get more bang for your buck. So they need to learn as well. They need to be guided as well, because it's things that, you may know that your family member, when they transition, that they were totally ignorant of it. Just because they're in quote unquote heaven or they're in the spirit realm doesn't mean that they are aware of even what you're aware of in your waking consciousness. It's things they need to learn too. A lot of them that are trapped in the, religions and, into, especially Christianity, because it's so, they don't go, deep into the studying death and, the things that we're talking about here. So people, they'll transition. They literally are gathered around churches, in the subconscious realm or in the spirit realm. They're still waiting on Jesus, and, what happens oftentimes with these type of spirits, these type of people, is that they end up waiting so long for something to come save them that the realm breaks down and they reincarnate back into a baby brain and got to start all over again and hit the reset button on the game that we're in.
Ooh. Yeah, well, yeah. You don't definitely you don't want to start all over, but believe me. Get it, go on, get it, yeah, get it right. And before we conclude, y'all, forgive me, but a topic as this, dealing with death, is not an easy topic, but it's coming up a lot. A lot of natural disasters, locusts in Africa. The disease that's going on in China, and people trying to get an understanding of the fullness of life and also death. And they're trying to, I don't want to say deal with it, but they're trying to get familiar with it, get comfortable with it, to where they don't want to be afraid from it. Questions are being asked. What happens after this? Where do I go? Where my spirit goes? What happens to my body? It just was a lot. Like the death of Kobe, as you stated. May he rest in peace. Peace be unto him. It asked a lot of questions are being asked, and a lot of things are coming up now. A lot of people saying they can't believe it, or a lot of people are saying it doesn't seem real, and it just, all of these questions just arrive to get a clear understanding, so they can be more comfortable or stand on solid grounds within their beliefs. And somewhat today, a lot of people are studying different religions. They might be Christian, but they looking into Buddhism, or they studying Hinduism or Islam, or people want to know now. I guess this is the age of information, really, at this point. And we thank you for sharing that insight, and I hope those that are listening, I hope you gathered a lot of information from this young man's wisdom to cope with your situations that you may be going through pertaining to losing a loved one. But understand that just because you don't see them physically, that energy is still a part of this universe. This universe is vast. Oh, before we go, and this is a question that just popped in my head, though, right? And I don't know if you can answer this or not, but when I say universe, dark matter, protons, neutrons, electrons, atoms, can an atom be kind of similar, or an example, or that energy, or atoms be an example of the spirit within, or are they totally two separate things? Because I know our bodies are made up of atoms.
Uh-huh.
I know that as much. And the only reason why I asked that question is I'm trying to make it all not seem so spooky, and bring it to a scientific level. Bring it to something to where people won't be so afraid. In a sense, because when you look at yourself as an individual, and that goes for everyone that's out there. You're made up of these energies. You're made up of these atoms. You're not the first you on the planet. You had to come from somewhere, from your parents, and then your parents came from their parents, and so on and so forth. So we're created beings, created by a higher being, and that mystery of death shouldn't be a mystery. It should be a applied science, or a study of. And people like Loki, who not afraid to go and study in depth, dealing with a subject matter such as this one, is a gift to the whole of society. Because for black people, for one reason, is the fact that our religion that the colonizer taught us was called fear, and so we became superstitious, and they were able to toy with us because the answers to complex questions, as they deemed was complex, we had a superstitious explanation towards it. But that was only because, we were under a new form of religion, and that new form of religion put fear in us since we were babies. But now that we're adults now, there's no need to be afraid of natural occurrences. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
And so I just wanted to hopefully help the listening audience, because as I always state, that this show is not like any other show, and you continue to listen to this show, it'll have you some of the smartest people on the planet, and that's Verbal Pick Radio. But before we conclude, anything else you'd like to add, Brother Loki, in comforting those who lost a loved one?
Yeah, so couple of things. So first, with one of the best ways to deal with family and loved ones and anyone that transitions is study death. Study death from the perspective of all religions. Study You know, when you look at Sufism, they build places where, you know, they do their spiritual thing, where they do their meditation, they'll build it on a graveyard. You know, study that perspective. You know, study Wundun, you know, study, you know, in Hinduism, Buddhism, Zoroastrianism, you know, you name it, you know, study, you know, so start familiarizing yourself with the actual concept of it. Kemet, you know, their whole, you know, as far as knowledge that they left behind is all dedicated on how to leave this planet and never come back. Right. You know, study their perspective, you know, but, you know, you're still going to shed the tears. Shed the tears, let that, you know, because, you know, I was talking to somebody and they, you know, I understand, you know, you get tired of you know, crying, you know, I just thought about Pac, his song, Shed So Many Tears, one of my favorite songs. And, you know, but you gotta, you know, you gotta go through the process, you know, and embrace the process. They had, you know, a mourner, dedication in what the Egyptians left behind, you know, just to say that this is all a part of the process. It's a part of being in the human experience. So, you know, don't be afraid. Don't have that fear to, you know, let that water flow. Let it cleanse things on out. It's all a part of the process, you know. And so study death, study Daf, study the Daf Sifra and Kabbalism, you know, and how, you know, Daf represents a gateway to the backside of the tree of life, which is the subconscious realm, and the front side of the tree is the conscious realm that we're in now. You know, both of those trees, the front side and the back side, are maps on how to navigate through the death realm and through the life realm, because in the Bible, when they talk about the tree of life, and then the other tree is the tree of knowledge of good and evil, well, that tree of knowledge of good and evil is also known as the tree of death. So that particular fruit that came from that tree of death, that Daf fruit, was the fruit that Adam partook of coming from Eve, which Eve is evening, which she represents the feminine principle, the black color frequency, the subconscious. She gave that to Adam as a form of knowledge, and he partook of it, and he became aware because the subconscious opened up to him in terms of information. He was no longer in that ignorance is bliss where everything was perfect. He got exposed to imperfection, so they covered up their bodies, which is the embodiment of a flaw, of an imperfection. You know, coming from the perfect concept of the soul, you know, that higher being is the soul. It is the thing that makes manifest, you know, everything that we're experiencing. We're within the dreams of the soul, you know. So one way to look at it is when the soul awakens, then we'll be beyond perfection. You know, so it's in that sleeping process while we work out imperfection within inside of it. So study death, you know, to be able to, as another tool to learn how to deal with it, so you can understand the purpose behind it. Get into, you know, check out, I always mention all the time, check out Brother Panic's work. He got a video how to communicate with spirits, learn astral travel. You can, you know, before you go to sleep, you can say, well, I want to go talk to this family member that transitioned. Program yourself to go to wherever that particular spirit is at within space and time, you know. It's you know, get into these studies, and all these things are open up to be able to deal with it. And as far as what you were saying about atoms, I have a question. Is, you know, what is your take on the atom concept? You know, just, you know, I just want to, just interested, you know, to know more about your take on atom, the concept of the atom.
Yeah, the atoms, not the atom, the man, but the actual atoms, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Well, the atoms, to me, is similar to sperm. You know, the atoms, they float, they travel. You know, you see some picture of atoms, they have a tail on it. That atom is what some say that the Most High, because the atom has intelligence, and through thought, called himself into existence. You know, and then that, out of that triple stage darkness, and then out of that mind, let there be light, then light came. You know, so yeah, that atom is powerful. It's a charge. It moves throughout universe through time and space. You know, that's my take. That atom is powerful. You know, it has thought. You know, as I stated, I would compare the atom to sperm, electricity. You know, it has intelligence. You know, it's a building block of life. And also hydrogen. What is that? 6 carbon, 6 protons, 6 neutrons. Melanin. So yeah. I mean, man wouldn't exist without the atom. Yeah, definitely. Now, when you say Eve. And Eve, and that's true. Eve is, you know, right when it's getting ready to get dark. So, if we was doing it metaphorically, we say Eve and that darkness represented that egg, that atom, that sperm fertilized that egg, and bam, man came forth with intelligence. That's why that the child in the womb, it grabs that spinal cord, then that brain, then it calls itself into existence. You know, it's calling things to make it. It's reenacting within the womb of the woman. That triple stage darkness is reenacting how the first God created Himself within this universe. So, you know, it's very important. Very important.
Yes, sir. So, you know, one place to look at is the top of the tree of life in Kabbalah. You know, when you say God created Himself, so out of Kether, or let's say God, then you become you have the first emanation in terms of the first Sifra, which is also, you find that in the Genesis when Adam was first made manifest. God made in the image and likeness of is Adam. ADAM is the same as HEOM. You can also study a tomb in Egyptian mythology to get another angle on Adam, the atoms that are within our body. So, yes, you know, this is something you could deal directly and communicate with the energy also through altars, through talking directly to it. You know, that's going to tap into that cause and effect. Yeah, it is that whole story, that mythology in the book of Genesis is talking about the atoms that are inside of your body, and that, you know, that emanation that you know, ultimately came out of nothingness, you know, and then became that first, you know, as far as, you know, what sprung forth would be everything that we know on this planet now, you know. So that starting point from one angle, you know, you could say is Adam, you know, or the atom, you know. So, yeah.
Never, yeah, it's yeah, and we just due to a matter of time, we just scratching the surface. But as you stated, there's more to it. You know, you can go as deep as you want. You know what I mean? But now, okay, but one thing, yeah, before we close out, yeah. So, what the Creator created was infinite. What man creates is finite. So if man and woman was created by the Creator. So you are infinite, coming from that spirit, that energy aspect. So it's like it's like women in the sense. You know, when they 16, 17, 18, they were 25, and everything is, standing, sitting right in they essence. And then as time moves on and they get older, or they try to find ways to stay younger and buy certain products and whatever, because they felt like their whole existence is in looking young, or is in their youth, and have to realize that each stage of life that you go through is beautiful. Getting older and your wisdom and things that you learned is beautiful. And so enjoy and embrace each, and men as well, enjoy and embrace each aspect and stage of life all the way up to when the clock is not ticking. And then enjoy that. Then enjoy that free energy range as you once again would represent that atom floating through the universe, moving with intelligence, riding with your ancestors, looking over part of yourself, which would be below, walking this planet in human form, as above, so below. Atoms in the universe above, atoms on the ground below, and we still rolling. You know what I mean?
Still rolling.
Still rolling, bro. Don't nothing stop the show, bro. We still. The only thing I can say though, one thing I do gotta say before we get out of here. If there is reincarnation, right, and I mess around and happen to come back to my children when they get old and they listen to this podcast, set me up like I set y'all up. Don't have me coming back to no shack in the woods. Have me coming back to know where nothing, where I gotta come and struggle all over the hell now.
You feel me?
You know what I mean? Y'all better have me set up right. You know what I'm saying? God damn. Don't squander my hard work. God damn.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
One thing I ask for here, I be mad as hell. You know what I'm saying? I'm walking around, man, flies all on my head, man, hollering about I'm hungry. Hell no. No.
Like, man, I ain't put all this work for this wood.
Yeah, I really come back to this shit. You should left me alone, left me up in the universe as an atom floating around. Don't bring me down here.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's what that is. But I appreciate your time. The artist, now y'all gotta remember, this is an artist. Loki is an artist, and the artist is an art form. An artist is science. So definitely look him up, check him out. Show him your appreciation for him sharing his knowledge with you right here on Verbal Peak Radio. Appreciate you, brother Loki.
Oh, one more thing, Brother Black.
Yes, sir.
Is for precision, going back to, technically, when you talk about the tree of life, Kether is the first emanation out of nothingness. And if I'm not mistaken, Chokma would be the equivalent of an atom or atom in the Garden of Eden in the book of Genesis. Chokma and then Bina would be Eve. So Chokma just represent the masculine principle. And then Bina would be the feminine principle coming from Kether, both coming from Kether, and Kether basically being both combined, into one Sephira, both masculine and feminine in one. So it'd be a unisex, if you will, or a androgynous Sephira. Right. So I just wanted to add that, for clarity.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get on that. We're gonna have to get on that that ancient times when people speak about the androgynous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's gonna. We're gonna segue into that real quick. Pain brings about Meaning. Okay, damn. How can I put this? We got so far removed from being upright. I believe, and I could be wrong. Upright to where we went too far to the left. We went too far to the right with pain and suffering and fighting and killing and shooting. And so when we tried to, or when they tried to bring joy back, they shot too far to the left to bring joy back to where it threw some of the sexual nature of beings off. And that's why you got men trying to be women or women trying to be men in a sense or whatnot, looking for joy again out of a world such as this. Because, and the reason why I say this, because I didn't hear women say, well, watching their fathers or being with other men was just, it was too hard, and they had to they felt much safer around females, and they did it for protection. And and one point, well, when the colonizers, in a sense, broke up, when the initial aspect of the gangs was to provide a service for the community in a positive way, but once they came in and twisted and it became negative, then everybody was on guard, and that persona was, I'm ready to shoot, to kill, or if I gotta go, I gotta go. And that feminine who thinks from the emotional aspect, it was too much, and it put them into a breakdown, in a sense, not a nervous breakdown, but because they couldn't understand and couldn't better watch to see their counterpart, black men, being slaughtered at wholesale by the hands of each other. That was outside the realm of the norm. And so sisters was like, for protection, I feel safer being up under another female.
Right. Yeah, that was some trauma that happened in the past when, as men, we symbolically are the perimeter. We're the exoskeleton. We guard the perimeter. When they say men are dogs, another way to look at that is that, I got a couple of dogs. They guard the perimeter. They guard the home. They're territorial. They bark at anything outside of the gate. That's what, in terms of duty, in terms of the way that we fashioned ourselves, as men, we naturally are inclined, to guard, to protect, and, because of the triangular slave trade, they try to do what they could to get us away from that. And, what we see now is, the product of triangular slave trade still being experienced now. So in the past, when the men, let's say they were in the civilization and they were compromised, then the women, they were either absorbed by the invading, foreign entity, or they banded together and then they became these groups of women that, where you find, majority women civilizations that, sometimes warrior women, when you hear of these warrior women societies, these societies only actually popped up after the men were compromised, and that line of defense wasn't actually there, because the masculine and feminine principle work together. If the women have to guard the perimeter and they have to make sure that everything in the interior of civilization is moving smoothly, then that's double work. And who wants to be doing double work? Right. Nobody. We fashioned ourselves down here to be able to work together for us to, take a load off and make the workload easier, and that's just how that goes.
Right. Oh man, yeah, well said, bro. Well said. Okay, that's the segue. So next time we'll give y'all more on that topic because the topics that we discuss is vital to the times that we're living in right now. Appreciate you, brother Loki.
Appreciate you, Brother Black.
Yes, sir. Verbal Prick Radio. We out.